what is creativity? Yeah, look, I don't think I'm qualified to answer, but um, is product management a creative job? It is creative. It maybe is not as
Mhm.
creative as some others. Often product managers say what they love is problem solving, and
Mhm.
uh, coming up with viable solutions within constraints to a problem is a pretty good definition of design thinking. If you kind of
Mhm.
delve around in the design thinking literature and filter out the various bits of hype and bullshit, you come up with these kind of core ideas which are incredibly powerful, right? They're incredibly powerful for
Mhm.
almost anything that you do in life, in fact.
Mm.
Um, and one of them is, uh, the idea of diverge, converge, diverge, converge. So know the different thinking styles and when to apply them, and that's at a sort of macro level and a micro level. Hence the repetition of diverge, converge is the double diamond, which you may well be acquainted with. And
Mhm.
then the idea of a super clear problem statement, which is like insanely powerful. I was saying to you before, wasn't I, Alfie? In life, you seem to go round in circles and revisit the same places again and again. And if you were looking down on you from the top, you might say, "Oh, look at that! There's Phil walking round and round in circles. What is the point?" But if you're looking at it from the side, you realise that actually I'm going up a spiral staircase. So
Mhm.
I'm busy. Actually, I think in the last sort of 6 months or so, or maybe 9 months, re-experiencing the power of fantastic problem statements. And
Mhm.
creating a problem statement is creative, and then finding solutions to a problem statement is creative. And then the last bit there, constraints. So there's a very famous Charles Eames quote about, design is nothing but constraints, and good design is about a designer's willingness to engage with those constraints and so on. So
Mhm.
the idea that that the more constraints you've got, the more creative you have to be to come up with a good solution that fits them, would be another example of creativity. Um,
Mhm.
so, is product management a creative role? Yes, it is, if you define it like that.
Mhm. That makes sense.
I actually have a question exactly on that topic. So if we take this definition of creativity being problem solving and working with constraints, it seems almost as if anything can fit in that definition. If I'm an architect, I'm working with constraints. If
Yeah.
I'm a waiter and there's a lot of people on the floor and I'm trying to solve the problem of how to carry, a bunch of stuff on one tray, there's problem solving with constraints. If I'm a mechanic and an engineer, I'm
Mm.
solving problems within a constraint. So how do we then define who would be the creatives and who
Please, let's
aren't?
not.
Because
No, but it's a really, really good. Yeah. So human beings are all creative to some greater or
yeah.
lesser extent, right? In that they do solve problems. Uh, you remind with the story of the waiter. Actually, you reminded me of kind of the original book of Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi,
Oh,
about
my
what causes
favorite.
people to get into a state of flow.
Yeah.
And for some people, it's um, building great rapport with other humans. And I think that a really great waiter, actually, their creativity may be about how many dishes can they balance on the head of a pin, but it might also be about how can they create better service experiences or customer experiences so that their customers end up happier. And certainly
Mhm.
chefs, obviously, that it's more
Yeah.
easy to point to creativity there. So I think it does come in many forms, more forms than I listed. I only listed a few, didn't I?
Mhm.
The the other aspect, I guess, of creativity, which I think you're driving at, is there something that is deep within your soul that you wish to express, regardless of whether it is designed at solving a problem. So I suppose if you are Van Gogh, right? I
Mhm.
imagine, I wasn't there at the time, but I imagine that he wasn't trying to solve a problem for anybody. He was quite famous for literally wanting to express how he felt when he looked at a starry night or when he looked at a cafe terrace in Paris or whatever. And why did he want to do that? Purely for the joy of it, purely because he wanted to make this thing and experiment and explore, and he found delight in it, or he found a lot of angst in it too, didn't he? But just this thing inside him where he wants to express something or explore something that he finds personally fascinating. And I suppose, one key difference between art and design is that design is so much more often about what problem are you solving for others, or what need are you addressing for others, whereas art is so much more about what is it that you're trying to express for yourself. I think art goes beyond that too, doesn't it? Into kind of what do I enjoy about the interplay between my art and the audience and so on. So there's some playfulness in there as well, which it's not necessarily trying to solve a problem for the audience, but it's trying to create a response in the audience. So maybe that's a different definition of creativity. And then the funny old thing, I suppose, about making interactive products, so whether you're a software developer or a designer or a product manager or many of the other roles you could fulfill as well, putting the thing out there, it comes back to the dent in the universe, putting the thing out there and seeing how people respond to it is... it wasn't there before, you created it, see what I did there, and then seeing how your users, your audience, the world, etc. responds to it is a thrill, isn't it? It's like, wow, this thing wasn't there, now it's there, and look what happens. I imagine I was actually thinking again about Clubhouse, the Clubhouse app where people rock up and do live audio and whatever. The guys presiding over the astronomical growth of Clubhouse must have been on such a high, right? When that thing was going through the roof. Imagine, right? If you were the person who designed that or came up with the concept for that or was doing the marketing for that or whatever, and you're like, oh my goodness, look at this. This thing is going bananas and everybody is into it in a huge way. What a high, right? That must have been. So various interpretations of creativity.